Well, I suppose that I really always admired my mother, who was a nurse, and so that was probably the only thing that I really ever wanted to be.
I had two desires when I went to high school, was to be a nurse or a school teacher.
I wanted to be a nurse when I was 8 years old.
I wanted to go to college, and so I took the academic course, and I wanted to be a nurse.
I was one of those kids that always wanted to be a nurse.
The University of Maryland School of Nursing offered a very separate and distinct program for people that were nurses already, that were already RNs.
I was 16 when I graduated from high school, and I couldn't go into nursing training until I was 18. So I decided to go to College Park for 2 years and take the pre-nursing.
It was a very big day when I went down there the first time and came from a small town like Frederick, which was very small in those days.
I think I was in the 11th grade, and we had a career day. And I said to one of the students in my class that let's start writing some of the white schools and just mention that we are Negroes getting ready to graduate from high school, interested in nursing, and would like to attend their school.
And then he said, well, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I always thought about being a nurse, and I think my curriculum was set from that moment on. He advised me to get my bachelor's, which was probably the best advice I ever had.
We started in July, and we picked up anatomy and physiology during the summer and picked up what they called then nursing arts, so that we could start in the clinical area in the hospital in September.
The class had started, and they were still reviewing my credentials, and that's when the NAACP stepped in, because they said, we will take this to court. The case just seemed so weak. And then Thurgood Marshall got up, and I mean, it was so brilliant, so forceful. Soon I was told that I had been, we had won the case.
And those first 6 months were very hard. It was a lot of studying and a lot of things that we had never done before, and a lot of discipline. Get up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
And have to be at breakfast by 6:30, of course in complete uniform. And then from breakfast we went to chapel. We'd have inspection. We had to wear, of course, have our hair off our collars. We had to have watches then we wore around our neck on a black ribbon. We had to have a pen, a notebook, your procedure book.
Strict discipline. I mean, you had to stand up when a doctor walked in the office. Everything was yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. You had to be in bed, asleep at 10 o'clock at night.
Parsons' dorm wasn't air conditioned. It was small, it was old, but it was home.
And I drug my suitcase up from the basement 4 or 5 times to the 7th floor during that first 6 months to pack. I was going to go home, but I decided to wait till the next day, and then I unpacked it and drug it back down to the basement because I really wanted to be a nurse.
You can imagine that it was a lot of stress with someone who came in at 19 and had to go through all of that. I don't wish it on anyone. I don't wish it on anyone.
Walking onto a hospital floor and being in a position of taking care of people is scary when you don't know what you're doing. And the faculty would make it clear that you don't know what you're doing half the time. So I think it helped a lot to have that clinical experience.
As a nurse practitioner student, I would go in with the provider and interview the patient and work collectively on a diagnosis and a treatment plan.
You had a section called the glove room, and that's where all the gloves that were used in the OR and any place else on the floors went. They were washed, and then you blew them up and looked for holes, and you took gloves that were too holey to use, patched these gloves, and put them back in packs, and they were autoclaved. And that was a dreary job.
And things were so awful that we just, when we would get an afternoon off, we'd all get on the streetcar, the 4 of us, and cry all the way to Catonsville and swear we were never going back,
The Campus Inn. The Campus Inn was the place to kick back, and it wasn't just for nursing students. Everybody was there. It was the place to meet people. It was the place to kick back. And you needed to kick back. It was a grueling curriculum, a lot of work, a lot of expectations, and many nights where you cry on each other's shoulders.
It was a very tight group of students. Everybody helped each other. Everybody studied together.
We had a good diversity of people, and they got along well together. it was a fun time as I look back on it.
You loved being capped because then you had something on your head that said you're a nurse.
We got the first cap, which was just a plain organdy cap with a little ruffle on it, and cuffs on your uniform, your plain blue uniform. And then when you finished your first year, you got a short cuff with a little band in the middle.
We wore black hose all through the 3 years that I was in training, and we really liked it because we felt like it was great then to get your whites when you're a graduate. Everything was white, your uniform and your new cap and white hose and white shoes.
And after midterms, we had the fluting ceremony where we actually took this cap that was kind of starched looking, that was very straight and it had these straight little edges on it. And what you did is you took water and you loosened the starch and made it fluffy and cute looking. And then you wore that cap for the remainder of your student time here. The stringing ceremony was the graduation cap. Now that's the cap that you wear after you graduate. And of course, I'm sure you're familiar with that. That's the lace cap, the Florence Nightingale design.
I was so proud. I worked so hard those 3 years to get that cap on my head. Although I had an organdy cap, which I was proud of, I was more proud of that Flossie.
My mother attended the graduation. My older brother and his wife and a friend of mine who had been in my class from 3rd grade through 12th grade.
And then each student was pinned individually by the faculty of her choice. So it was wonderful. It was a wonderful evening.
But our little group of March 1948, there were 18 who finished, and we've always stayed close together and in contact with one another.